Blessed Peter Donders was a Redemptorist priest whose work was in the South American Dutch colony of Suriname in the 19th century. He was born and baptized in Holland on October 27, 1809. Because of his family's poverty, Peter received only minimal education, yet from an early age he had a deep desire to be a priest. With the help of his parish priest, he managed to get into a minor seminary at age 22, and 4 years later he began his studies in preparation for ordination. Because of his desire to be a missionary, Donders' seminary superiors advised him to join a religious order. When neither the Jesuits, nor the Redemptorists, nor the Franciscans would accept him, Peter Donders finally made an arrangement with the Bishop of Suriname to serve there as a priest. He was ordained in Holland in 1845 and finally arrived in Paramaribo, the capital city of Suriname, in 1847. He spent the rest of his priestly life there. In 1866, when Father Donders was 57 years old, the Church of Suriname was entrusted to the care of the Redemptorists. It was then that Blessed Peter was accepted into the Redemptorist congregation and spent the last 20 years of his life living and working as a Redemptorist. Peter Donders died at the age of 77 on January 14, 1887. He was beatified by Pope John Paul II on May 23, 1982. It seems to me that the primary characteristic of Blessed Peter Donders is his missionary zeal, his pastoral compassion. Each of the three groups to whom Donders ministered highlights a particular aspect of his zeal and compassion. In the 26 years he lived and served among the lepers in Batavia, another place in Suriname, Donders showed extraordinary sensitivity, care, and concern for the people he served. Father Donders' love for the lepers helped them to believe that they were loved by God. They were not abandoned or forgotten. One of the lepers said of Blessed Peter, "Father Donders was always with us in Batavia. He helped us in all sorts of ways. He fetched water, tended our sores, swept out our houses, and served us in other similar ways." He did things like these, especially when there was a shortage of staff to look after the sick. And it was mainly due to his efforts that the government eventually provided nurses. That last point indicates that Peter Donders' missionary zeal was not only a question of charity, but also of justice. His concern for justice was also a prominent feature of his work with the African slaves on the plantations around Paramaribo. Visiting the plantations was an arduous journey by boat through jungles and swamps, and Donders was appalled at the conditions in which the slaves lived. He said at one point, "Oh, if only we here were worried as much about the health and well-being of the slaves as of the farm animals in Europe." Because he spoke against the practice of slavery, Donders was not well received by the plantation owners. Blessed Peter also found himself not very welcome among the native peoples living in the jungle around Batavia. Nevertheless, he persisted in his efforts to proclaim to them the good news of God's love and our salvation in Jesus. Donders' efforts among the native peoples of Suriname make clear that both his charity and his desire for justice were rooted in his deep desire, even compulsion, to preach the gospel. The life of Blessed Peter Donders was devoted to the primary and fundamental task of evangelization. That's the mission entrusted to each of us by our baptism. Through the intercession of Mary, Queen of Apostles, and of Blessed Peter, may we respond ever more fully to the baptismal call to live and proclaim the good news of salvation in Jesus. May God bless you today and always.